Yes, I'm there.
Great.
Thank you, Jennifer, for the introduction. I'm happy to be presenting as part of Plan Sponsor Week, and we'll discuss how to harness the power of benefits data. So today we will focus on various ways plan sponsors and advisors can take advantage of available data to support their benefit program. We will also discuss the impact of poor medication adherence, how disease state data can help inform design and wellness decisions, and we'll close off with how different types of technology can assist in program management. So leveraging plan-specific data can help answer the fundamental questions needed to manage your benefit program. I like to use the saying, without data, you're just another person with an opinion. So similar to what is known as the healthcare triple aim, where governments strive to 1, improve patient experience, 2, improve health of populations, and 3, reduce costs to the system, the focus for plan sponsors is really quite simple. You want to ensure your plan is providing value while containing costs. You want to keep your employees healthy and productive, and you want to drive behavior change, whether that means having employees make more consumer-based decisions like choosing lower cost but equally effective treatments, or whether it means helping them make healthier lifestyle decisions. So leveraging your data can help answer these questions like what health conditions are driving our plan costs, what opportunities lie to improve our plan to ensure sustainability, and also how does our plan experience compare to others. So looking at normative data, you can tell that you may be an outliner to a book of business benchmark, or if you're similar to other plans, is it really just the cost of doing business? So there has been an evolution of how we access and consume data. Reporting takes factual data and presents it. There's no judgment or insight added. Reporting extracts data from various data sources, allows comparisons, and makes the information easier to understand by summarizing data for the recipient. Where analytics drives business decisions by questioning and interpreting the data with distinct purpose in mind. So in short, reports provide data, analytics provide insight. Analytics makes data more consumable by displaying results, typically through visualization software, which I will show you an example of later, to illustrate patterns and trends, and bringing insights to the forefront. In addition, reporting data has historically been siloed, where analytics aims to be more unified by bringing in different data sets such as drug, health, disability, enrollment, demographic data, again, providing answers that plan sponsors and advisors need to make decisions with greater confidence. We'll also see that AI and machine learning is considered by many to be Industry 4.0, so the fourth industrial evolution. I think there's going to be a lot of application and utility of that, particularly with the level of data we have in benefit programs. So as plan sponsors, you pay a lot in drug benefit costs to ensure your plan members are protected and healthy. But are they taking the medications as directed and on time? Is your benefit cost really an investment in employee health if they're not optimizing their treatment? So measuring drug adherence can help answer these questions. You will note on the next slide that these conditions account for a large percentage of overall eligible claim costs as well. So we calculate adherence by using the medication possession ratio, which determines the time between fills of maintenance medications against the days supply that have elapsed over that period. So we consider anybody with an MPR of less than 0.8 to be non-adherent. So really what that means is, for example, if a person had a prescription dispensed for a 90-day supply, but they never fill the next prescription until, let's say, 115 days later, they'd be considered non-adherent. They'd have a non-adherent rate of 0.78. Taking drugs on time and as prescribed is critical to managing these diseases. Often people that are on antidepressants start to feel better and they may skip doses. So there's certainly reasons for non-compliance. You'll see asthma has a very, very high non-adherence rate, but it also tends to have that seasonal component, which may explain why we're not seeing regular fills based on the day's supply. Now, monitoring your top therapeutic class spending can shed some light on where the burden of illness lies within your organization. So even particularly when you can filter out just the plan members or the employees, and then you ignoring spouse and dependents, so you get a really good picture of what's driving costs. So the previous slide showed poor adherence across several chronic conditions, and you'll see those conditions are also present in the top 10. So they contribute highly to overall plan costs. You'll note there hasn't been much movement in the top 10 categories from 2018 to 2019 in our data, but these top two do account for 60% of overall cost based on the TELUS book of business. So when I look at the top 10, 5 of these could be considered modifiable risks. So diabetes, certainly if it's type 2, asthma includes COPD in that category as well, so that could be lifestyle based. Depression, certain forms of cancer could be lifestyle based as well if they're due to smoking. And blood pressure is certainly has to deal with living an active lifestyle and eating right. So how does the data help you manage program costs? What is the importance of keeping members healthy? What pre-claim focus can you have to help bend the cost curve? Implementing programs that focus on nutrition, fitness, stress management, work-life balance, and making healthier lifestyle choices can help minimize both the direct and indirect costs associated with these chronic diseases. So just to continue on leveraging data to hone in more on certain chronic conditions, you'd be surprised what you can uncover. So the next few slides I'm going to go through we're calling the portrait of a diabetic. So diabetes is a very challenging disease to manage, and if type 2 often results in comorbid conditions or adjunctive therapy to go along with it. On the surface, those claimants taking at least one diabetes medication account for 4.92% of all claimants under our book of business. And they also account for 17.9% of all claims processed. This also would include things like syringes, lances, and test strips. So devices, not just diabetic medications. The average age is also 50 years old. Now, if we dig deeper into the data, those claimants that were resulting in the 10.6% of diabetes costs in the top 10 slide I showed earlier are actually contributing heavily to other disease categories as well. This slide shows the claiming frequency of comorbid conditions for a diabetic. So based on this chart, a diabetic may also have one or more of these 13 conditions. Most often it is cardiovascular and cholesterol, as you can see the two on the bottom. Again, you will note a lot of these could be considered modifiable risk factors. In addition, many of these treatments are very prescription intensive. For example, cholesterol, 2 to 3 medications to get under control. Blood pressure could often have up to 4 medications to get under control. About 60% of the diabetes claimants require at least 1 cholesterol medication and 1 blood pressure medication based on our data. Depression and angina can be considered spin-off items, meaning the depression occurs when someone is unwell. Similarly, high cholesterol and hypertension can lead to angina. The point is this: you need to look beyond the surface data. Yes, the diabetes therapy class is one of the top as far as overall percentage of paid claims on our benefit program. When you consider the other present conditions, a diabetes patient is responsible for a very high percentage of overall plan costs. So this slide focuses on the number of distinct medications an individual is claiming, so an individual diabetic patient. It follows a fairly normal distribution, as you can see. The majority of the claimants are claiming in that 5 to 6 claims, but the groups A, B, and C at the top will show meaning in a future slide when I focus on what is the makeup of those different cohorts. So if you were to add the boxes, add the box C, you will note that there are about 70,000 claimants using more than 10 different medications. And there's definitely a correlation with age of that cohort as well, because the claimant average age is 55 years old. So that's when certainly you're seeing much more age-related chronic diseases start to appear. So a different way to look at the impact those high claiming individuals have on cost, you can see that diabetes medications and supplies is really a smaller portion of the total dollars as the number of medications increase. So that's the purple and the gray lines. But the green line represents the total paid on average for people that are on these several different medications. So they are averaging over $10,000 per year. And it's simply because diabetes has so many other conditions that go along with it. So it's not like some of the specialty medications where we're seeing well over 10,000 to treat a rare condition. This is much more common and widespread condition. So now, before we get to the next slide, it's time for a polling question. But before we launch it, some quick instructions you should know if you want to participate. The poll will show up in the event platform behind the window you're using to watch the live stream. If your window is fully open, you'll need to minimize this to see the poll question. And if by any chance you exit the live stream, you can easily jump back by clicking on the live stream button in the top right-hand corner of the platform. So the poll will remain open for 40 seconds, and you'll hear music in the background. After 40 seconds, I will share the responses. So let's get started with the poll questions. On average, how many different medications is a diabetic claimant on? Is it 4? Is it B6? Is it C7? Or is it D10? Okay, so let's see. 6 was 45%, so that was the top answer. The actual answer is 7, so 26% got that right. Oh. Sorry. So you see here, it's 7 average medications. So when we layer on these other metrics, as you can see in the slide here, we observe that for diabetic patients, they're actually claiming over $3,000 annually, where about half of that is for diabetes drugs and supplies. So double that in other conditions that go hand in hand typically with diabetes management. We also see that diabetics are only 74% adherent, as I showed in an earlier slide. So that could be improved to help manage all the different conditions they're experiencing. Lastly, the 18.18% of total eligible costs that we showed earlier is mostly driven by those in that cohort C. So those, if you recall, were those claimants that were on 10 or more medications. So moving on from the portrait of a diabetic, data should be applied as patient-centric wherever possible. So plan members are the focus, but it starts with the analytical tools that plan sponsors and advisors can access to determine different pockets of risks in the benefit program. Tools that focus on optimizing plan design can help contain costs. After that, frequently monitoring of utilization is necessary to create the continuum and ensure that the design is yielding the proper results. So essentially, keep monitoring, but adjust your plan where necessary, monitor, and again, rinse and repeat. So I'm showing 4 examples of these types of tools that integrate different data sets in order to help support plan sponsors and advisors in the decision-making process. When I look at program tracking tools available, remember earlier I did the comparison of reporting versus analytics, where analytics makes data more consumable by displaying results, typically through visualization software and by using automated data feeds. So an integrated dashboard such as this, connected to near real-time data, i.e. like a daily refresh, rather than weekly or monthly, can certainly pinpoint what is driving drug costs. Dashboards are great tools that are based off visualization software that allows the user to drill down on demand and monitor plan performance over time periods. Imagine the power at your fingertips to filter only on claimants over a certain dollar threshold to see what is driving those particular payment costs. Or imagine filtering by clicking a graph on only employees' data so you can see what conditions are driving costs to support what could be a well-matched health and wellness program. So data organized in this way can be a very, very powerful decision to support tool for both plan sponsors and advisors. So sticking with other different type of program tracking tools. So now that everyone here is kings and queens of program monitoring through data, now what do you do? Now you know your risk areas, but how can you improve the performance of the plan? How do you know if it is worth the change? How do you know what will happen to your plan member experience? So consider a tool that could be used by your advisors and insurers to answer these questions. So based on identified risk opportunities areas through your regular plan monitoring and dashboarding, and being able to access that's plan's specific historical claims data to simulate different plan design changes and provide a comparative analysis of the outcomes, much more precise view of the impact on cost and plan member experience. A tool such as this allows users to change current plan design variables and then simulate, so essentially re-adjudicating the last 12 months of claim submissions while applying a different set of plan members. So it looks at what actually happened in the history against what would happen if you were to change all these different variables. It also quantifies the difference in plan costs, but equally or probably more important, the impact on plan member, because that's always top of mind question for plan sponsors when they're going into look to change a design to their plan. So there's a distinct market need for this type of tool that enables plan sponsors to more precisely quantify the impact of potential design changes in order to make fact-based decisions. So I came from 14 years in the benefits consulting industry, and I think one of the biggest frustrations advisors have is the lack of real data being used by insurers to quantify the impact of a change. Often there'd be a range cost impact based on a book of business, which would be, might be 2 to 4%. So this tool goes a little beyond that because it uses the plan's own experience and simulates using the claim adjudication logic. This tool is also unique in the fact that it allows the user to make multiple plan changes, such as a change of the formulary, change of coinsurance, dispenser fee caps, and then simulate them all together at once to come up with a cumulative effect. Because it's self-serve and web-based, the results are real-time for the user. I also believe it will be a useful tool for carriers to be more proactive and provide plan design alternatives at renewal time. Simply because I think more employers are taking a hard look at their benefit program given current business challenges with COVID and also given the rising cost of drugs. So in summary, our data and analytics has showed us that regular monitoring of your program utilization can help determine where change may be necessary and, more importantly, quantify that change. Adherence could be improved across several chronic condition categories, which could have a positive impact on treatment outcomes. Non-adherence and poor lifestyle choices also have an impact on future plan costs, and more importantly, disability and absence, which will impact productivity. So reviewing data can enable plan sponsors to build a business case for investments in design change or wellness program where necessary. Artificial intelligence and machine learning can drive predictive analytics. So think about looking at analyzing large volumes of data to understand not just the disease, but the potential treatment progression for the disease. So that's an application of AI and machine learning. So with that, I am looking forward to the questions.
Thank you very much, Sean. So we'd like to open the floor up to questions from the audience. Remember, you can type in the questions to send to us, and I'll get us started off while you're thinking of things. I wanted to ask if there's any confidentiality issues or risks when it comes to accessing plan member data.
I mean, there is, but not if handled right. So the insurers and TELUS have access to claimant level data. We have access to link it to other data sources, meaning if you have a drug identification number, there are programs like First Data Bank where you can link it to link that DIN to other variables, I guess, that are associated with that DIN. So that allows you to do rolling things up, as I showed the top categories. So as long as no personal health information is disclosed, and it isn't with any of these tools that I've been talking through, it's all aggregated data. And then further protecting it is what's known as small cell suppression. So if for example there was, let's say, less than 10 people on a particular drug or on a particular disease category, then that gets masked. So there's risk, but it depends on how you handle the data, for sure.
Okay, great. Thank you. I was also wondering how frequently this data is available, and if you could speak to the plan sponsors in the audience, the suggestion of how often they should be checking this data.
Yeah, data now, I mean, it used to always be, and I'm not talking too long ago, um, it was a monthly feed. Most of the insurers and even the PBMs um, would refresh the data monthly. It's gone well beyond that now. It's available daily. You may not need to look at it daily, but the data is available. But even daily may help some answers if there's a big spike, you could drill more into it at a daily basis rather than only a weekly or monthly. So I mean, a monthly review of your program outcomes, I think would be good. I know there is always a lot of review by plan sponsors and advisors annually through certain reporting that's available. But with the self-serve examples I've shown, there's certainly the ability to look at your data more frequently and log in yourself and do it.
Okay, great. We do have a question from the audience that relates back to my question about privacy. This person would like to know, can you do this analysis on a 5-life group?
No. I mean, you could do, so the example of the plan simulation, that's for a carrier to run. So they already have access to that. So you could technically re-adjudicate those 5 members' claims. I don't think there'd be much value in like a dashboard, an on-demand dashboard for that small, simply because I said there's rules, suppression rules for plans that small, so you don't potentially disclose personal health information.
Okay, great. Thank you. And the last thing I wanted to ask is just in terms of the poor medication adherence, what do you think are some of the reasons for that? And what are some of the things that can be done to avoid that?
Yeah, I mean, I think, and when we measure adherence with just the data, we know when they're filling them. We still never know when they've consumed them, right? So it's an indicator of poor adherence, but it's not the only indicator. The other thing we don't get is, which eventually we will through integration with electronic medical records from the physicians, is how many people were prescribed something and never picked it up. So our claims data will never show that. You would need to have the EMR data to show that. I think some of the reasons for it is, as I said, there's some like depression. It's a chronic condition, should be taken at daily, but people start to feel better and they may skip doses. So there's also reasons like that are contributing to non-adherence. But what can be done about it? Simple reminders, either reminders direct to employees through their apps, or more of a blanket reminder to an organization about the cost of wastage and the cost of inappropriate therapy by not taking medications on time.
Okay, great. Well, thank you very much, Sean. Unfortunately, that's all the time we have for questions. I'd like to thank Sean once more for a great presentation.